Welcome to another lecture session on media studies. Today we will discuss the second part of use of media by superpowers and demand for a new information age. Now this episode will throw light upon the later half, that is demand for a new information age. You are bound to use some gadgets which gives you a lot of information in no time. You're bound to do that. You have to have an email ID. You have to have a lot of documents to propose or to suggest that you are a citizen of this country or you are an employee of a particular company and a lot of things. So information becomes a key process in this age. If you are a modern entity, you are a modern citizen, information provides you with all the things that you need in life. But we need to know what is this information age all about. The meaning of information age should not be confused with supercomputers, super technologies, or capacity of memories and chips that holds a lot of information, a plethora of information. It is rather the impact of the information age on human consciousness. It's the impact of these machines, this impact of the information on human consciousness, strategies and social structures, the ability of integration of the information and data that might result in the way we look at the world and look at ourselves. Now I would like to show you the history of evolution of our world. If you look at this chart created by Alvin and Heidi Toffler, this chart of ages, you will find that on the first column the waves are given, the first wave, the second wave, and in the second one you can see the period, the kind of period which designated our civilization, and then the activities, and then the time span. First period, there were no waves, but the first period was that of the hunters and the gatherers, and we all know what activities we had, and it lasted for tens and thousands of years. Actually, we are talking about prehistory. And then the first wave came when human beings learned how to till the land, how to yield agricultural products. That was known as the agricultural age, and the main activity was farming, which lasted for thousands of years. The second wave was the industrial age. It is only for a few hundred years, and this age of industry activities were of mass production. And then the third wave in which we are, which has started quite recently. This period is known as the information age. The third wave designates the information age, where the main activities is dealing in specifications and information, and the time span is just a few decades. Peterson is another futurist scholar who has a lot of theories about how our world will become on the basis of what we are today. He has also designed a chart which is quite similar to the previous one, but yet a little interesting. If you look at the chart, you will find that the first column talks about the number of years. It says 25,000 years. The first system was the notational system. By notational system, we mean the kind of gestures and the kind of signs that were used to communicate. And we were hunter and gatherers. For the last 5,000 years, we have evolved with the writing system, and what we did was agriculture and farming, and that's what the feudal age is all about. For the last 540 years, we have come up with the printing press, the first mechanical reproduction of our thoughts, of our writings, and this designated the industrial age. Now, for the last 27 years, we are going through the age of information, where the mainstay of our civilization is not printing, not electronic device, but a microprocessor. That's where information is stored. Technology, information, and the rise of strategic leader. We have already been discussing this fact that how superpowers have become strategic leaders by manipulation of information and media. Of course, the contemporary media deals not in terms of cinema or music or just entertainment. It deals in terms of information. That information can come to you in the shape of audio, in the shape of visuals, in the shape of a combination of audio visuals, or just simple plain data. Now, the world superpowers have always been trying to bridge the gap between two things. What is with us, what is with the superpowers, the present condition, and what could be. Now, what is the starting point of any kind of exploration. It might be space technology, it might be invasion of a country, it might be a business also, or anything which has immense potential of achieving something. What is, that is the present condition, and the goal, what could be. And the difference and the bridge between these two situations is the unknown factor, which is represented by X. Let's say X. Whatever we don't know, we say X. And the military strategy, the technological strategy, the industrial and the marketing strategy is what you have today, what you are going to achieve, that is what could be. And this difference, you have to play an active role in this difference. There's a journey from what you have right now and what you can become. It's almost like if I want to travel from Calcutta, that is what is, and I want to go to Mumbai, what could be. So the difference is I have to go there, I have to cover this distance. If it was 100 years ago, it was just plain simple. Probably train would have been there. It would take 2-3 days. Now we have airplanes which will take only 2 to 3 hours. So that is exactly this X is. Now this deciding factor of X, it might be any kind of strategy, but the deciding factor of what my strategy will be is information. That's why the superpowers try to achieve a lot of things in terms of technology, in terms of space exploration, in terms of ocean exploration, in terms of building huge multinational business corporations, or even a film industry for that matter. And this information is represented or denoted by H. So this X, which is the missing part of what you have to achieve, is actually determined by what kind of information you have, which is represented by H. There was this experiment, all these X and H, I don't want to sound very mathematical, but let's say the way in which you achieve something is X, and what are the factors that includes the way in which you receive these things is H. Here, this organization called Human and Research Organization, it's called HUMRO, conducted an experiment on information and how to manipulate information and how to use information in order to achieve something. They compared over 150 organizations and demonstrated a link between the efficiency of these organizations and the information flow. So it is quite clear that any kind of achievement, any kind of huge activities in this kind of a world is based on how you use information. Let's talk about information warfare and the superpowers. Why superpowers for their warfare depended on information? Why did we have so much of spies? Spies, yes. So much of spies during the Second World War. Germans sent their spies in the American camp. Americans had a number of spies. That's why James Bond is so popular even in films. James Bond, more than action, he gathers information, and information becomes a deterministic thing in battling, in winning battles. 2500 years ago, there's this Chinese war philosopher who wrote the best book on warfares. It is known as The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu was the person. He said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. So, for Sun Tzu, a Chinese warfare philosopher living 2500 years ago in China, has stressed on the importance of having information about the self and the enemy, especially in winning battles. Information, labor, diplomacy, and superpowers. We were speaking about achievements, achievements of huge explorations. We were talking about warfares, but what about diplomacy? What about means of production? What about utilizing the labor for maximum amount of production, for maximum productivity? Now, in a very important book called Rise of the Network Society, We Live in a Network Society by Castell, he says that grand transformation of employment has taken place based on information, and nature of occupational structures are discussed in advanced capitalist societies. Occupational structures and the transformation of the way in which people are employed has undergone a seesaw change. In this regard, what comes to my mind is the huge organization called Google. What is Google? What do they produce? It's nothing but processing of the information. There's another very important factor is with this information, you can control labor. You can control the labor force. In a post or a late capitalist society, controlling the labor force is a key to business, to hold strategic positions of the world in terms of global economy. China and United States, they are the huge superpowers who employ most of the people all around the world. It's not on the basis of sheer military power that they can do this. It's on the basis of how they implement and take actions on the basis of the information that they have. Superpowers, their hegemony, and global discontents. Now we will talk about the global discontents. Of course, if United States is the only nation who knows everything about you, whatever you do in the cell phone, in the networks, whatever you do on your computer, in the Google, you will find that somewhere, somehow, certain people, maybe CIA, maybe FBI, maybe people from Google, who knows, they have complete information of your daily activities. Any of your activities is on the network, you are easily traceable. This is not only something that makes a nation very powerful, but also makes a nation in complete control of the world orders. And that's why the nations, the countries which are not as powerful as China or, let's say, United States, they will have their discontents. The information and communication technologies, mostly these technologies, belong to United States and the few other superpowers like Russia, Germany, like United Kingdom, and they are becoming the instrumental changes in our information age. Production and consumption patterns in the context of globalization is controlled by these information systems. And these information systems, they are controlled by mostly by United States and by the other superpowers. So there's a kind of a demand for information by all the superpowers, and once you get this information and once you get the access to this information, you can manipulate them and you can use them for your greater purpose. Information age developments embed further inequalities. This is a very concerning thing in a contemporary world where we all communities, the nations, they want to become equal. But if you have an iron grip on the information systems, if you own the information systems, there will be inequalities. You will be more powerful than the nations which do not have access to information. We are developing countries. We are quite reluctant to call ourselves third world country, but that does not change the scenario. However GDP increases, it cannot turn a third world country into a developed country. There are so many examples in Asia and Africa and even in Latin America. We all know that. So the information and developing this information, if you do not have the means of it, there will be inequalities. Just like Bangladesh and United Kingdom, they are unequal not only because of the fact that the everyday average wage is more in UK and than in Bangladesh, or the United Kingdom people are more educated than the Bangladeshi people, but United Kingdom as a government, as a nation, has more access or owns more technological and communication systems than Bangladesh. That's what really makes a nation powerful in today's world. Now, why these discontents? We have to understand what are the discontents then. Superpowers have taken control of the geospatial and sociospatial framings. Now, what is geospatial? There are various kinds of spaces that we are into, thanks to the information age. Geospatial means the spaces which we can signify in terms of geographical interpretations. Let's say, of course, spaces are geography. Let's say Falkland Islands, let's say Kashmir. You can geographically, you can locate them. But what about socio-spatial framings? What about spaces in society? Spaces in society, they are not tangible. They cannot be measured, but they are like a stature. For example, you might live in a hut, but you have the best means of communication and you use information systems in order to reach out to the world, and hence you create a huge acceptance. Socio-spatial framings, by this we mean the kind of impression and the kind of spaces or number of people that knows you. A good example might be virtual reality. There is a very popular community in Facebook called Humans of New York. Now, Humans of New York is a community. There are thousands of people there. But what is this community? Can you feel it? Can you touch it? No, you cannot. Because the spatial representation cannot be represented in terms of physicality. It is the psychological space. It is the space of the society which is acceptable. So these kinds of framings depend on information. And mostly these geospatial and sociospatial framings, they are owned and they are controlled by the superpowers. That is a grave concern for us. Global political economy, or GPE, reveals that it is a mediated political economy. Global political economy is supposed to be a kind of a political economy which is shared and not controlled but participated by each and every nation. You cannot be biased, or you cannot be a mediator when you are a powerful nation. But inevitably, this is the law of power. United States, China, and Russia. These three nations, these three superpowers, have taken control of not only the geospatial and sociospatial framings, but also the global political economy. Because the economic factors, the economic manipulations, everything is controlled on the basis of information, and most of the information strategies and technologies belong to the superpowers. Increasingly, we are getting dependent on different kinds of virtual networks and spaces, which belongs to the superpowers. Let's talk about a kind of a software which you have to buy. It's a very expensive software. Probably it is one of the best softwares when it comes to editing or photo image or any kind of media reproduction or media production. Now you cannot get a tangible DVD or CD or a tangible box. You have to download it. You have to pay online and you have to download it. So this entire my way of life is slowly but surely is getting into this virtual network of spaces and societies and clouds and so on. And these spaces of networks are under the control of United States. Today, if you want to go for shopping, of course, why would you go and toil yourself in the local markets? You have the online products, and mostly they are American in nature. Let's say you want to give puja in a mandir. You have the facility of online religious activities. This is where our world is coming to. You can see the image of your goddess or god, and you can pay the amount, the charitable amount that you want, and then you can perform all the rituals online. So we are getting into a kind of a virtual network. We are getting into a kind of an information system which cannot be felt in terms of physical space. Everything has become virtual, and everything is based on the information and algorithms based on information. Now, in this case, Tunisia's Secretary of Information, Mustafa Masmoudi, made the following points. These were the points out of discontents because of the unequal distribution of wealth, of power, of access and manipulation of information. Dissemination of information to the developing countries is monopolized. Information is dissemination or collection of information of the developing countries or to the developing countries has been monopolized by superpowers. Superpowers in the West maintain an indirect way of dominance. An indirect way of dominance through filtration of information. We might not get a lot of information in the third world country or a developing country if the first world country thinks that it is not good for them. So there's a kind of filtration by the West. Political, economic and cultural neocolonialism. Very interestingly, nowadays superpowers do not use army. They would use information systems in order to destroy another country, in order to destroy the other country. The information system in terms of military, in terms of finance, in terms of social activities, it is under strict control of the superpowers. And hence, in terms of business deals, in terms of enforced business deals, which Masmoudi calls as neocolonialism, is in the hands of the superpowers. And since information is filtered, information is monopolized, information has become the modern day army, the use of media has become more and more efficient for the superpowers for political coercion. NWEIO. This is an organization called the New World Economic and Information Order. This is an organization where a lot of legislations, a lot of things have been proposed to the superpowers by the third world countries. Setting up information centers for the third world nations. So the third world nations have realized how important information is. These centers should be funded by the West, by the superpowers who control the information. Balance between the information flow from West to the East. There should be perfect balance. There shouldn't be any mediation. There shouldn't be any filtration. Mutual assistance in distribution of technologies. Now, this is a huge demand on behalf of the third world nations. There should be mutual assistance. So the first world nations will assist the third world nations in order to distribute technologies for development. Information of development in terms of health, education, agricultural strategies and methods, family planning and environmental concerns should be promoted to the third world. Now, the third world nation faces all these problems. These information should be disseminated to us so that we can improve the standard of our life. Political news such as protocol news should be given prominence. It should come to us in a prominent way. It shouldn't be filtered. Communication networks among the third world countries should be developed. Now, the communication between these third world countries are very poor. They should be developed and information should be passed on to one third world nation to the other, just like the superpowers do. This is the condition in which we live. The modern day warfare is not fought on the basis of weapons and on the battlefields, but it is fought on World Wide Web, on Google, on information systems and hackings and satellite networks. So this is the paradigm of our lives, and this is bound to change our lives. Third world nations, they require information system and a perfect access to them in order to develop our own selves.